What is going on, guys? My name is Ricky, and I'm going to talk about video games and its implications on selective attention as well as ADHD. Not exactly a pair you're used to hearing, but let me explain, and hopefully you will gain some insight as to why I think this will be a successful therapeutic method for ADHD as well as increasing your cognitive skills in general. First off, we should probably define some of the words I mentioned earlier, like what are video games. I think everyone knows what a video game is looking at you Fortnite, but many people forget that there are many different types of video games out there. Just how there are many different types of songs to listen to or different types of movies to watch, there are different video games to play as well, some better than others. Next, we should define selective attention. Selective attention is a person's ability to attend to one stimulus while multiple stimuli are occurring simultaneously. For example, let's say you're engaged in a conversation with someone at a party. Obviously, there are many things going on, different noises, other conversations, maybe even a football game on the TV. Your ability to attend to only that specific conversation is your selective attention coming to play. In case you didn't know, selective attention is a big issue with people with ADHD. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a neurological disorder where people can't focus on a single stimulus for very long before getting distracted by other things happening. Furthermore, they can't seem to sit still for very long. Because of this, young children are diagnosed with this disorder and usually grow out of it as they get older. This doesn't mean that adults can't be diagnosed with this or that symptoms simply disappear when they get to be 18 years old or something like that. The usual treatment with ADHD is to prescribe amphetamines to those dealing with inattention and hyperactivity. Amphetamines are usually prescribed like Adderall. And normally amphetamines increase hyperactivity and are normally an upper, but people with ADHD respond differently to it. It's actually a downer to them and is extremely effective. The big problem with amphetamines is that it is addictive. Even if ADHD symptoms no longer persist, people still take them because it helps them with focus and things like that. I'm advocating for video game therapy because the chance of addiction to a form of digital media is low, relatively speaking anyways. Yeah, people get addicted to social media and other forms of media, but the physical mechanisms behind getting addicted to amphetamines and media are different. It's much harder to become addicted to a video game than it is Adderall. With all of that out of the way, let's see what some of the research has uncovered on this issue. First, a study by psychologists in Nottingham Trent University found that participants who played action video games for 1 to 5 hours a week processed information more accurately than those who didn't play video games at all. Action video games in the study were defined as those that involve fast-paced motion and looking out for multiple targets or threats, like in Call of Duty, Halo, or Gears of War. Participants were shown a list of items at a speed of 10 per second and were asked to recall details of 2 items in that list. They were asked which item appeared in a different color, as well as the orientation of those colored items. On average, those who played video games were about 5% better than those who didn't play video games at all. While it may be a small number, a difference was recorded and was statistically significant. Putting this into perspective, if subjects were asked to analyze 100 items in a list, those who played action video games were able to pick up on 5 more items than those who didn't. This could have implications on tasks that require more attention than most. Some of the basics like driving or playing sports to the more advanced like being an air traffic controller. Future studies should see if attentional transfer is present. Next, researchers at the University of Arkansas, in conjunction with researchers at the Key Laboratory for Neuroinformation of the Ministry of Education of China, found that even after 1 hour of action video gameplay, subjects showed an increase in selective attention capabilities. Participants were hooked up to an EEG and were recorded before and after playing League of Legends, another action video game. The study's use of action video game is a little bit different than the last one. While League of Legends is an action video game, there's a lot more strategy involved in order to be successful in that game. So there's a lot more of a learning curve than the previous games mentioned. The EEG showed that expert gamers had more brain activity associated with attention than non-experts. That's the big issue with this study, though. Only video game experts showed this increase in attentional capacity, unlike in the previous one. Experts were defined as players who have had at least 2 years of experience, as well as being ranked in the top 7% of League of Legends players. Non-experts had less than half of year experience and ranked on the bottom 11th percentile. In case you don't know, even placing in the top 20% of players is extremely difficult. I'm an avid video game player myself, and I can only think of 2 games where I would qualify as an expert, and unfortunately the time commitment may not be worth it. Those games would be Call of Duty Black Ops 3 and The Last of Us. I was top 8% in the US region for Black Ops 3 and top 2% in The Last of Us. The time it took me to get there, easily 500 hours plus. So yeah, that's not exactly ideal. Moving on to the next study, we're going to look at a paper done by the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia in partnership with Achille Interactive. What they did is they created an action video game from scratch to target the inattention symptoms that children with ADHD experience. Not only does this have implications to those afflicted with ADHD, those on the autism spectrum can be helped as well. The game they created is called Project Evo, an iOS application that uses algorithms to adjust to the person's attentional and cognitive abilities. Evo adjusts in a trial-by-trial basis as well as gives feedback to the user. One of the big goals of Project Evo is to facilitate treatment without it feeling like treatment. Kids are much more likely to be a participant and much more receptive of treatment if they find that therapy engaging, so making it seem as much as a video game as possible assists with that. Project Evo is still in its infancy, and the sample size discussed in the paper is small. However, the researchers, as am I, are hopeful that this therapy will prove successful with many more children. While there is a lot of research to back all the good video games has on selective attention and ADHD, there has been other research that suggests that the use of video games is actually detrimental to those afflicted with ADHD. While the normal person has a normal chance to get addicted to video games, a person with ADHD seems to have a much higher chance of becoming addicted, as they are more likely to use the medium as an escape mechanism. However, this is more for more severe cases of addiction. Playing for a long time doesn't really count. This is more if you play video games despite the fact that you have work or school obligations, which is never good. Likewise, a meta-analysis was done on over 100 research articles about cognitive skills in video games and found that there is likely a bias towards the benefits of video games. So much so that the reported effects of various literature are estimated to be 30% larger than they actually are. Of course, not all hope is lost. The researchers suggest that the replication of these studies with a much larger sample size would rectify most of the issues outlined in the analysis. And that about does it. I would love to dig in deeper on the issue, but I don't want to bore you much longer on this podcast. There's a lot of room for investigation. I think we only have scratched the surface on the possible therapeutic effects of video games, as well as the general cognitive increases associated with video gaming. Admittedly, securing funds for this kind of research is low because of the general stigma towards video games, which I have encountered in some of my psych classes, but that's a battle I'm willing to fight. If you would like to take a deep dive into any of the journal articles I discuss, I have sourced them all in the description box down below. If you would like to learn more about those with ADHD and want to improve your overall knowledge on the subject, visit chad.org. They have many researchers talking about how to engage people, particularly children with ADHD, and they also have an ADHD director so that those who think they have this disorder can have it checked out by a professional. Thanks a lot for listening, guys, and have a great day.